everyone, it's Robin, Arts Island Crafts, and welcome to my studio. Today I'm doing a continuation of the trunk show of the many quilts that I've made in the past and I still have here at home. This is some elephant fabric that I picked up at Joann's and I matched it with this turquoise. This is when I started making my bindings with 2 different colors. Ooh, I just had so much fun playing with things. This one has a solid brown fabric on the back. The binding is machine stitched down. I was getting a little bit better with my mitered corners. I stitched the binding to the back and brought it around to the front. And what was fun with this quilt is I made a second one. So I thought it'd be nice to make them for twins. Now, why did I have to make a second baby quilt? Well, because as usual, I cut out so many squares that I had enough for 2. I believe these are 36 inches square, or at least they were when I started. They might be smaller now after quilting. Both of them have some free motion quilting. I just free motioned like this down each column. I also had made a backpack for my stepmother out of the elephant fabric because she loved it so much. I still have some of this left, so I really need to go ahead and make maybe a tote bag or something out of it. I just thought it was so fun to make something for like twins. With my Go Cutter, I won a die or I bought the rag die and I made this skull quilt with the pinked up ragged cut whatever. So it's a rag quilt, I believe we were calling them. Even around the edges. It's only been washed once and never been used because it was a baby quilt that I had it in a little boutique for a bit. So it's not completely fuzzy, but it's close. This is when I learned that rag quilts really aren't, I like the look and I like the idea of them, but they are a lot of work. Even with the Go die, you were constantly having to use a little dental pick to get all of the threads out of the die. I didn't put batting in these, I just used 2 pieces of flannel, mixing up the darker skulls with the flaming skulls. With skulls, I really don't think too much about them. I always think like motorbike guys and stuff like that. I never really thought too much that like skulls weren't family friendly and stuff. I've since learned that not everyone likes skulls for baby quilts. In one of the quilt-alongs in Blogland way back when, most of these are from, I'd say 2002 to 2011, so everything's at least 10 or 11 years old, most likely more. We were learning how to make the zigzag quilt by using half square triangles. I made a Christmas version. So I'd say this is about a lap quilt size. And I really went crazy piecing leftover Christmas fabrics on the back. Even to the point where I needed just a narrow little bit to there. And you could tell how my squaring up of everything was never perfect. I always had a hard time getting the backs to line up perfectly with the front so you didn't end up with anything weird like that. On this, I also tried to learn how to stitch your binding down so that you would stitch on one side and it would catch the other side. And yeah, I know I was never really good at that. I think that just takes a lot of practice. I have another one of those panels. This one is mostly, I think, the entire earth just flattened out. I actually have a couple of these in the back seat of my car that I use to cover up the back seat or the middle seat of my little Dodge Journey so that the sun doesn't bleach out the actual seat. I bought a seat cover for it, but it never really fit properly. So why not use something like this? These panels were actually popular among a certain group, and I thought it'd be fun for maybe a homeschool room or something like that, or for any kids that were really interested in things like that, but I think I was wrong. But it's still a good piece to practice on. Now this one looks like it was my first time hand quilting. I think this was another one of our Schnibbles patterns. Binding's been hand stitched down. Polka dots like crazy. These were definitely not my fabrics. You can tell if you've been around with me for a while, you know that I really love the bright colors. Looks like I might have hand quilted the entire thing. and not very well. But hey, we all have to start somewhere and get some practice in to make everything look nice. You can learn something, but you can't perfect it and make it look the way you hope it will just by doing it the first time. Sometimes you get lucky and it comes out and looks amazing, but most times we have to practice things over and over and over again. This was my first time using any type of minky, and it has little hearts on it. Some leftover flannel that someone gave me for making burp cloths and stuff. It says, I love grandma, and little bears and things like that. I just did some straight quilting. And then I did a little hand quilting around the hearts. Now see how much nicer that one is? I think making baby quilts, as long as you make them so that they're not going to fall apart for safety reasons, babies are going to use them and abuse them, and they don't need to last for generations and generations. So practice on that, or practice on lap quilts. Make them for the grandkids, or even just practice on quilts for like the dog kennels and stuff like that, to donate them. This is Cheerio. It was the very first jelly roll I ever won, and I just loved the colors. There's pink on back, which definitely messes with the lighting and everything. I used pink and white for the binding. And we made these little mini log cabinets. I'm pretty sure I followed a pattern somewhere for it. The hearts are machine stitched down. That's when I learned that I didn't like to do satin stitch to applique. See, we learn a lot of things from our beginning quilts. I made a similar one that I sold. I had several fat quarter packs of Barbie fabric. I think this might be a disappearing 9-patch design that I just popped together. And on the back, it's all kind of pieced. And then it was all done. I thought, oh my goodness, even for a Barbie quilt, that is a lot of crazy pinkness. Some of these quilts I'm going to keep and hang up. Some of them I'm not sure what I'm going to do with, like this. But other ones, they'll be good cutter quilts that I don't mind. I made the quilt, it doesn't bother me. I can cut it up and turn it into a tote bag, or maybe I want to make a sewing machine mat out of it. So some of them just may not be good at being a quilt. Like this Barbie quilt, I could cut this up and then add other fabrics to it to calm it down a little bit. I have a little bit more skill now, and a little bit more knowledge on how to change things up. This one is a Halloween guy, all black on the back. This has free motion quilting, and I'm pretty sure I used glow-in-the-dark thread. So these are all hexies that were hand pieced, and then I did a little hand embroidery into the center of them. Again, it's a little wild and crazy, but Halloween is a little different. I think it's okay to go wild and crazy. Candy corn for the binding. This is just a simple panel quilt. I've actually sold a couple of these. I made a few because I had enough fabric. They're just the ABCs with black and white. They just kind of float, so there's no piecing to this. I just did some straight line quilting, added some blue to the back and some blue binding. So this was a sweet little baby quilt. And here is a Christmas. I was making a lot of different like table toppers and wall hangings. This just has some big X's quilted into it. 9-patch within a 9-patch. Ooh, I was getting fancy on this one. Then this is Courtyard Steps, I believe. Got all those candy canes and the border along those squares. I just had so much fun making this, and I don't remember what we were doing, I think I'd swapped 12.5-inch blocks with people and then made extra for myself, because I have a similar one that I would put on the ottoman in the living room. We had a large ottoman where the whole lid lifted up and you can store, well, we stored yarn in ours because of course, come on. So I think I just made an extra one. So some of these would be really nice to just go ahead and put up at Christmas time. I don't think it's anything super fancy, but it's fun and colorful. And if you have enough rooms to hang a variety of things, I mean, why not put some quilts on the wall? So that's it for this a little bit of a trunk show. I still have plenty more. Keep on coming back every few weeks and I'll pop up a new one, and maybe every now and then I'll put 2 up a week because I have a lot of these quilts. I kept making and making, and I had nobody to give them to, and I wasn't selling anything back then, and you can only have so many in your own home, so I had plenty because I just couldn't stop making them. So your scrappy word for today is red, because there's so much red and green in this quilt. So thank you so much for watching my trunk show, and come on back, I'll see you in the next one.